giving you that space of mind, right? So everyone gets boggled by whatever the day brings, whether it's having issues with at home, issues at work, issues in your personal life, personal trauma. And I think the beautiful part of this sport is that you really have no time to think about anything else other than not getting killed when you're on the mats.
What is going on? Welcome back to Jiu-Jitsu Outlet. I'm sitting here with a legend in the online jiu-jitsu community, Mr. Luis Silva. How are you doing, man?
How's it going? I don't know about a legend, but okay.
Dude, I feel like you have some of the biggest. You're a little known. Well, we'll call you a little known legend, but because you have some of the biggest Facebook groups in the jiu-jitsu community that I've been a part of for years. You've got the freaking Blue Belt Mafia group is one of my favorite groups for ever since I've been a blue belt. Honestly, I think I joined it when I was a blue belt, and now
That's crazy. That is crazy to me. How a lot of people. You're not the only one. There's a lot of people that I have met from the group when they were blue belts, and they're on their way to black already. Just a couple of stripes before they get black already. Like they're. And it's like it's incredible how we've been together this long.
Yeah.
You don't see that. And
crazy. Yeah, I really think it's one of the longer running groups. Like I'm pretty damn sure I joined it when I was a blue belt, or at least like I might have been an early purple, but I was right around like 2015, 2016. I think is around when I joined.
Yeah, just about there. It was no, I don't know if BJJ Fanatic was around that time.
It was. I remember it was before BJJ Fanatics. I remember your group before BJJ Fanatics. Like you were back when like the only groups were like Jiu-Jitsu Globetrotters, your group, and then there was the BJJ over 40 group, and then there was like a couple.
That was made up for a while.
Yeah, and then there's a couple others, and then Jiu-Jitsu Globetrotter or Fanatics popped up.
Yeah, there was the infamous WBBJJ, the white belt BJJ.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
That's the one that drove me to creating the Blue Belt Mafia. Actually,
I remember that. Oh, that was the old group.
We were it's just the group. I'm not gonna speak bad about the guy that runs it because I don't know him personally, but a lot of people were having concerns, or they weren't too happy with him, including some of his admins. They felt like they didn't like the way he ran the admin team and everything. And I even have a couple of admins that were his admins, and they're my admins now, and they've been my admins ever since then the whole time. And one of them is Mikhaila, for example. So I have a total of 6 groups, I think, one per belt and a judo one, and each one of my groups have one admin that is a veteran to the group that since the first group started, and I call him the general. He's the general of the group. So every group has a group general, and then every group has assigned admins also under that general. So if I pretty much give that general full autonomy when it comes to running the groups until I get involved, which I never really do. And then, but then if I have to discuss anything within the admin structure, an admin maybe not, doing what it's supposed to be doing and whatever, what I'm going to do about it, then we discuss it among the admin generals. And then we take a decision as admin generals, and then make a decision on that particular admin. So it's a well-structured group where everybody has a voice, and there is no communisms, but there's also no imperialism at the same time.
Right.
So it's fair, where I don't get to run it like a dictator. It's like, you will do this or you'll get out. And I mean, come on, it's a free job. Why would I want to do that?
Well, you've done a great job, man. And I bet there's a lot of people listening who maybe are even in that group, the Blue Belt Mafia. If you're not, go check it out on Facebook. But dude, Luis, I want to talk today a little bit about how jiu-jitsu helps you in your career, because I know that you've done a lot with HBO and you've done a lot with other streaming services. And I want to talk about that. But before we get to that, I want to ask you the question that I ask everyone on the show. And that question is, how does training in martial arts impact your mental health?
Well, to be honest, it's mostly is giving you that space of mind, right? So everyone gets boggled by whatever the day brings. Whether it's having issues with at home, issues at work, issues in your personal life, personal trauma. Some of us that are combat vets and have seen things, have a difficult time in life, and some of them, have other whatever issues may be. And I think the beautiful part of this sport is that you really have no time to think about anything else other than not getting killed when you're on the mats. So it does give you that personal space in your mind, that little corner of your brain where no one can enter, and it's specifically only for jujitsu time. You know, I imagine a room in the back of my brain that is locked up with a key, and the only password to get in there is this is jujitsu time, and then you can get in there. Any other worries, any other problems, any other situations that is going on in your life, they're not allowed to enter that room. So it's great to have that kind of safe space where you can say, well, you know what, at 6:30 on this day or that day or every day, I know that everything is going to be cool. Everything is going to be, I'm not going to have any problems. I'm not going to be worrying about whatever might be, boggling me. And I think of people who don't have that kind of outlet. That's gotta be horrible. I mean, having to just go to work, come home, eat, sleep, and then wake up in the morning and go to work, come home, eat, sleep, and just continuously doing that and not having anything for themselves. That's got to drive your mind to the ground, man.
Yeah, man, you're right. If you don't have that outlet, it's very hard. It's very hard to make headway. And it's so nice how you're almost able to enter into this forced Zen state when you're trying to stop yourself from getting choked, or maybe you're trying to choke someone else out. And it's like this kill or be killed game that we enter into, and it almost like allows you to enter into that fight or flight zone where you get to forget about your problems and you get to experience combat, but in a controlled setting with a partner who's there to like take care of you instead of actually
Which
hurting you.
is something that is very unique to grappling, by the way. It's very unique to grappling because only in grappling, I don't know. I want to say it's only in grappling, but I think I'm right. And somebody else who's watching this might correct me later, but I want to say that I'm right. I want to say that it's only in grappling the only place where you can actually go as hard as you can, as close as real as you can, and still be safe. I boxed before jiu-jitsu was life. I boxed and fought in MMA for 14 years in boxing and about 4 years in MMA. And there is no way that I could go at the same intensity that I go in jiu-jitsu, that I could have gone at the same intensity every day that I trained in boxing. I would have been eating out of a straw and eating my own boogers right now. There's no one that can handle that. TBI would be within a month.
100%. Yeah, I've seen my friends who are strikers do sparring together, and they do a lot of like touch sparring, and it's kind of like 50%. It
Yeah,
almost looks more like they're doing a flow roll with each other, because if they were to go 100%, then it would be a real fight, and you can't do that all the time.
you can
It is
sustain that. You can sustain that. So what they do is that they build a muscle memory. Basically, that's what the striking sparring is. It's supposed to be a 50% or 40%. You building form and you building muscle memory to train your body to react to certain situations without even having to think about it. Which is again my pet peeve about when I talk on Facebook about how people have falling in the habit of retaining guard when they jump guard or something like that. They jump guard and they retain guard, or they go into flying arm bars and things like that. And they say, well, this is jujitsu, it's a sport, jujitsu is a sport. I said, okay, fine. But here's what you're doing. The day that you might need to use jujitsu as a self-defense, and don't tell me that you won't, because you will. I mean, not saying that you will be in a self-defense situation, but I'm saying that you will use it if the self situation happens, right? If the self-defense situation happens, and you will be, using jujitsu because it's a tool you have in your pocket, you will do whatever your body is learned has learned to do. And if you train your body this entire time to jump guard or do a flying arm bar, or maybe do a close guard and retain that close guard with all you have, then guess what? That's exactly what you're going to do in the middle of the fight. And you're going to get slammed because it's muscle memory. That's what muscle memory is for. That's why I tell people all the time, close guard is great, but not all the time. You have to learn when to let go of that close guard, and you have to train it like so. Going into a sports situation and retaining close guard because you're protected by the no slam rule, that's foolish. The no slam rule is not always going to be there for you.
Yep, 100%. I think about this a lot. I think there's one style of fighting that is dominant throughout. Like if you look at all the different sports, all of the different self-defense situations, because obviously you can watch fights online and you can see what a real self-defense situation looks like and get a pretty good idea these days. And it seems like there's one style that is dominant throughout. And that style is win the takedown battle, get on top, and basically smother your opponent. Like if you watch ADCC this weekend, watch Gordon in the finals, in his final super fight. He just smothered that dude. You know what I mean? He made him look like a blue belt, basically. And this guy is one of the best in the world. And that's what Gordon does to all of his opponents. That's what he did to Jacob Couch, for instance. He just made his life miserable. And if you look at Khabib, and if you watch, his fights in MMA, it's the same sort of thing. He takes his opponent down, makes them miserable. And it works everywhere.
That's always been my theory, and even when I teach, I preach the exact same thing, and that's my methodology when I teach. Also, I tell all my guys when I teach them, so you have certain goals and certain priorities depending where you are in the middle of the road. If you're on the top, your primary goal and your primary objective is to make the person under you more tired than you are. You both are going to be tired, but just make sure that he is more tired than you are, and maintain that pressure, and let time go by. You don't need to rush into anything, and let that person continuously wear out, until he becomes easier to submit. Okay, because that will happen, and then submit. So that's the methodology and the priority on working progressively throughout the chain of moves from top. Now, when you're on bottom, the situation is different. When you're on bottom, your entire primary goal is to be back on top. It's not to try to submit the person from bottom. I know that's cool. I know that's what I know a lot of people love to do that. I know a lot of people love to fight from the back. And even when I was a blue belt, I loved fighting from my back and putting people in triangles and arm bars, and I thought it was the coolest thing. But then eventually I realized that, you know what, this is a fool's errand, because at some point I'm not going to be able to submit someone that is on top of me because he might be better than me. And then what do? Lose the entire time that I'm down here? No, improve your chances first by switching that situation where you're on bottom to the top. Your primary goal when you're on bottom is sweep. Sweeping is the only thing you should be working for, and guard protection. Guard protection and sweeping are the only two jobs that you have when you're at the bottom. Once you have turned that situation where you're on top this time, then you go back to the priorities of being the top player and making the person under you more tired, and then submit.
Right. Man, that's so true. Like if you just wear your opponent down and make their life miserable, it's so much easier that way. If you work on trying to make them breathe harder than you're breathing, basically.
It is.
Make them carry your weight more than you're carrying.
So there is a guy that I normally train with, Frank Patty. He's been my consistent training partner for almost over a decade. We call each other the gym wives because we're pretty much married to each other there, and then and it's me and him. We know each other so well, and we are so alike in many ways that it's very hard for either one of us. It's always a stalemate every time we go against each other. Okay, now That's because we always the very first roll of the night after class. After class and it's time to roll, since we already partner up, we are on that first roll. So we're both fresh, and it's a matter of it's a fight of wits of who knows, who can get away with something, right? And it's usually a stalemate. About a few times, it hasn't worked out that way, where I actually ended up we had to shuffle up the class, and I ended up getting him after me and him had already been rolled with someone else for like 3 or 4 rolls. So we were both tired at that point, and the roles were completely different. Not saying I won, not saying he won. I'm not gonna say anything, but I'm saying they were completely different because once people get tired, jiu-jitsu is completely different.
Oh
So
yeah.
you get the person under you real tired, and you wear him out. Instead of trying to rush into a submission, you just hold him down and you wear him out. You wear him out. You wear him out. That person jiu-jitsu goes from brown belt to purple to blue. It's gonna go down. If you really wear it out, you're gonna be fighting a white belt.
Oh, easily, man. It's like what Hoist Gracie said. If you get hit in the face, then you lose a belt.
Yeah, it's the
Every
same thing.
time.
If you get really tired, man. Even I have done that. I've been so tired sometimes that I have nothing left inside me, and the guy on top of me is just basically just tapping me with whatever he wants,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'm useless. I'm basically a white belt at that point.
Yeah, if you watch higher level jiu-jitsu matches, you notice that they really focus more on wearing the other person down and then going for stuff because otherwise it's almost impossible to catch someone in something because everyone's really good. So it's hard to tap them out if they're fresh, right? So going back to Gordon, if you watch him, he wears his opponent down and then he goes for something. I mean, he did go for that one submission right out the gate from, in the last ADCC. So we have seen him do stuff like that before, but those are the highlight reel moments. If you watch the majority of the time, you watch the best guys in the world, majority of the time, they're winning through pressure, takedowns, better passing, and fundamental stuff, really. And then you see the other stuff on the highlights.
Yeah, what I'm telling you is not something that I've made up. What I'm telling you is something that I have learned from watching and listening to Danaher, listening to Gordon Ryan also. And, I follow these guys a lot. I'm not a big fan of Gordon Ryan as a person, but I'm not looking for a friend. I'm not
Yeah,
interested in
I'm
his friendship.
exactly. I'm trying to learn jujitsu. Well, dude, I want to transition a little bit and talk about how does jujitsu help your life off the mat. So, I know that you've had a really successful career. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the projects you've worked on, and how do you feel like jujitsu has kind of helped you in some of the more like difficult times of your career?
Yeah. I want to say that yeah, it's been definitely a roller coaster professionally. When I got out of the army, I went into a really bad spot, and first with divorce, which is actually that was the good part. The divorce was the good part, but 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 the bad part came with me being homeless. I had a van, and I was living in the van, and so I reached out to a taekwondo place, which I ended up getting my black belt in taekwondo from there because I was already there, might as well, right? And I reached out to this guy who had a school, and I was like, hey, look, what if I teach MMA from here? And we split it. And then the guy took a like of me, and he said, you know what, man, just I'll let you sleep in the school, okay? Just so you're not sleeping in the van outside or whatever. The weather was cold, man. And I was like, oh, thanks. So and it was in the same building as the Gold's Gym, so I was using the Gold's Gym showers, and I was doing the best I could, man. I was traveling over to Virginia to get some professional fights over there for money, so I can make some extra money also. So it was really tough until eventually I met who my wife is now, and she's my rock. So she's really helped me through everything, and went back to college and made myself a software engineer. Started a professional career at that point, and then I got into a gig race between me and three other designers and engineers for a position at HBO, Warner Media. for the new app that they were going to build, and I ended up winning that gig race. I ended up becoming their US designer, and then I built the app that you guys know today. And then just recently they've been happy with it, and they promoted me to the senior director of the app engineering for HBO. So it's me and about another 20 people under me designing stuff for the app.
Dude, that's so freaking cool. That's a hell of a story, man. So I just want to dwell on one part of that. So you were,
So how does that apply with jiu-jitsu? Is what you want to
yeah,
know.
yeah. Well, I just wanted to ask more like, can you tell us a little bit? How did you go from, how did you become a software developer? Like in that time, like, did you have to, like, how did you get the money to go to school? Did you, get a scholarship or something? Like, how
Well,
did that work
I'm a
out?
vet. I'm a vet.
Oh, okay.
So
So you used the GI Bill. Okay.
yeah, so I used no, I think the GI Bill has already been right now. It's a different one that they had. The post, what is it, post 9/11 GI Bill. So it's a different GI Bill that they had.
Oh,
The
okay.
regular GI Bill had right now back when I was going through college while I was enlisted to get my commission to become a commissioned officer. But after I got out, I used the post 911 GI Bill, another different one, and then I put it towards that, and that's how I got it. And then, but to be honest, man, I for anyone else out there listening, we hire people that don't even have a degree anymore. That don't even have a degree. The IT world has come to a point where YouTube is your university. We're actually more attracted to the idea that you have learned things from YouTube and camps, code camps and things like that, than you putting a University of Harvard degree in our faces, because you're putting a degree like the one on my wall from a university in my face just tells me that you did 20% of software engineering and 80% of a lot of bullshit that you're never gonna need, literature and this and that and chemistry and biology and physics. Like, dude, I don't need you to build the cure for cancer. I need you to put a button on the app. So now the people who go through YouTube and code camps and all that stuff, these are the guys that didn't have to but wanted to learn. They spend the time researching and digging through all the little rabbit holes through the app, finding the things that they needed to make something happen, and they broke a bunch of shit before they fixed something. And yeah, that's the real experience right there. We love backyard mechanics. That's what we call it. I don't want the guy with a degree in automotive engineering. I want the backyard mechanic that can listen to your engine and be like, "Oh, that's that."
Yeah. Man, that's a great metaphor for it. But let's talk a little bit. How do you feel jujitsu helped you in this career?
Resilience, man. Resilience. The no quit is imperative for any kind of success. Okay, it doesn't have to be college. It doesn't have to be college, but if you want to succeed at anything in life, you have to be resilient. You have to have a no quit attitude about yourself. And jiu-jitsu is that kind of thing. Jiu-jitsu is it takes so long to progress in jiu-jitsu. It takes so long to learn a single freaking thing in jiu-jitsu, because there's so many different variations of everything. Okay, you cannot say. I hate when people say, "Oh, I'm a master in half guard. Half guard is my shit," or I'm an expert in half guard. No, the fucking not. You know a little bit of half guard, maybe a lot about half guard, but you can't possibly be a master of half guard because there are innumerable. Is that a word?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, Permutations of movements on how you can use a half guard. Okay, there are how many people in the world that could do jujitsu with you, and each one of them will react to your half guard differently. And then for each reaction, you have to have a counter reaction that that will be suitable for that particular situation that's happening between you two. So each one of these circumstances is a different way of using half guard. Okay, so and that's just one simple half guard sweep that you may want to do. Now you multiply that times all the thing that there is to do in jiu-jitsu, every submission, every position, every transition, every sweep, every guard pass, every guard retention, everything at all. And you have so much to learn that it's impossible to learn everything. That's why they say that you never stop learning, because it really, you couldn't learn all of jiu-jitsu in one lifetime. It's impossible. It's way too much jiu-jitsu to learn in one lifetime. So it almost makes people want to quit. And
Right.
it does. It does make people quit when they say, well, you know what, just too much. I'm never gonna get this. I'm done. Well, if you're that kind of person that say, well, you know what, this is just too much. I'm never gonna get this. I'm done. And you have that kind of quit, you are likely not to succeed too much on other areas. You'll have that kind of quit, because the situation came for me when I was in college, and I got my first day in college. My first class in software engineering was Java development, which is one of the hardest languages to learn. I was like, what? Can we start with like HTML, or can we start with something a little bit easier? Why do we have to start with Java, with like the worst one? You know, I almost quit. I seriously almost quit, but I didn't. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I didn't, and no quit. And jiu-jitsu will really teach you that.
Man, that's so well said. And it also goes back to what you were saying earlier about the creativity that's needed. Like just like in martial arts, a lot of times to get out of a position, you have to start getting creative, or to get out of a submission that you might be stuck in, you have to get creative. Or if you're trying to pass someone's guard who's really good, or take someone down who's really good, or whatever it is, you have to get a little bit creative. So it's the same thing in career, whether it's your entrepreneur, if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're a software developer or anything like that. I feel like that's where there's a huge carryover. It teaches you to be creative, especially under stress, which I think is huge. It's huge.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sometimes you just gotta pull one out of your ass, man. And
Yeah.
that's everywhere. That's everywhere. It's and it happens in jiu-jitsu a lot. That's why it's so important to learn the fundamentals, because sometimes I've had to do those things that are not by the book to do, and just to make it work, and it worked. So
Well, dude, I wanted to ask you this. There's a lot of guys that I know who are maybe a bit younger, and they want to do something online, and they want to train jiu-jitsu all the time, and they don't want to have to go to work at a place, because that would take away from their training time. So they're trying to do like something online, and a lot of them end up looking at software development or building websites or anything like that. What would you recommend to someone like that who's maybe made it this far in the conversation, and they're like, man, this sounds pretty freaking cool. I want to design apps for HBO. Like, what would you recommend they do? Is there a specific like YouTube channel or maybe a coding course that they could take that you'd recommend?
um, well, there is my YouTube channel that I teach. I
Dude,
have
that's
my
awesome.
own channel.
I didn't know you did that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I have my own channel in YouTube that I also teach. It's called Coding Nerd, and it has my face on it. So if you find another coding nerd that doesn't have my face on it, it's not me. But so there's that. But there's also Travesty. He is really good. I learn a lot from him, actually. Travesty's good. But there are a bunch. There are a bunch of them out there. It depends on really what you learn, what you really want to learn. But I would suggest, if anyone is going to get into the software development industry, field right now, consider that AI just came into the equation, and AI is not going to go anywhere. Okay, it came to stay. It came with, I said, rabid dog, and it's going to stay. And the more that people gripe about it and cry about it and say that this is the end of the world, you know, you're yelling in an empty room, because no one is listening to you, and no one really cares. So all you best you can do right now is embrace it and learn how to use it. Okay, I work with AI. In fact, I'm not supposed to say what I'm working on right now, but what I am supposed to say is that we are working with AI to integrate AI into HBO. Not just HBO, but the entire Warner Bros. Discovery. So one thing that AI cannot replicate that easily is humanity. Okay, so you have the coding divides into two big sectors: the front end and the back end. The back end is very logical, very scientific, and it's all about whatever every single line of code that you put in, and that's how it will react. It will react to every. It's all following by instructions that are written in the code. And this part of the code is the part of the code that does all the logic, you know, all the mathematical algorithms and everything else. And then you have the front end. The front end is what people actually see. So think about the back end as the plumbing and the electricity in the house, things like that, that they have a very specific way that has to be done. Otherwise, it won't work. But then you have the front end. The front end, think of it as the painting job in the house, the arrangement of the bedrooms and stuff like that, and maybe the decorations for sure, how you decorate a house. But so you have these two things. Now think about what one does, and how, one is affected by code, and the other one is affected by humans. Who makes the back end work? The code itself. Who makes the front end work and the front end look nice and pretty and attractive to the users? The ability for the person that is doing it, that is designing it, to design something pretty. That is a human thing. That is a human thing that AI cannot do. AI doesn't understand what is pretty and what is ugly. AI only understands zeros and ones. It understands a binary code, and it understands that what is true and what is false, but it doesn't understand what looks pretty and what doesn't. It's like Siri. If you tell Siri, what is 2 plus 2? Siri will tell you 2 plus 2 is 4. But if you tell Siri, does my hair look okay? Siri will not be able to tell you if your hair looks okay, because
Yeah,
Siri
it
is
doesn't
not
have
human.
yeah,
There is nothing human about it that could know what, even if it could see you, even if it could see you through the camera, it doesn't understand the notion of what looking good is and looking bad is. There is nothing to compare against to rate it from good to bad and what is good and what is bad. So this is why designing is still a protected area. Still, it might change. Who knows where AI is going to go? But
yeah.
front end still a protected area in terms of you user design and so I would suggest, if anyone want to get into the AI, into the industry for IT, look into anything that has to do with design, web design, user experience, which is what I do, um, product design, market design, things like that. So that will be the way to go.
I feel like even for the back end, I've used AI a lot like it came out. Like for instance, I use it to help me edit the podcast. For instance, we use something called Autopod, which is a great job of helping edit the show. But it makes enough mistakes that I need to still check it and make sure that it does a good job. So I would imagine the same would be true for software developers. Like if you're going to use AI to help you write some code, you're not just going to let the AI do it and then just be like, oh well, that's good. It probably did it fine. Like you still need a professional to look at it and make sure that it was done correctly. And if it did make a mistake, you still need someone who can go in there and fix it. So I feel like there's always going to be room for both. But you're right that the human side is definitely more on the front end. Whereas the back end, it might turn out that, a human's able to use AI to just 20x their code writing ability, which is great. But again, you're still gonna need a human somewhere to go in and quality check and unfuck something that the AI messed up or whatever.
Yeah, it's think about it as having a tool to help you do better,
Yeah,
but not it shouldn't be something to depend on. So it's like having crutches, right? You have crutches and your legs are fine, but you have crutches with you, right? Can you walk with the crutches even though your legs are fine? Yeah, sure you can, but why? Just use your legs. Just because you can, it doesn't mean that it's the best way to do it. So you use your brain. It makes you grow. It makes you better to use your brain. But then when you use AI to maybe double check yourself or find a bug that you can't find or something like that, I've done it. There's been cases where I am battling this bug and I cannot get it. I cannot figure it out. I put a little piece of code into AI to tell them what is going on here. What is this telling me? And then the AI would tell me, you're not doing this check here, for example. And then I go do that over there and I'm like, oh my God, that is right.
right. Yeah, 100%.
If it's a tool that you can use, I say use it. Just don't depend on it, obviously.
Yeah, man. But if there's someone listening and they're interested in this, yeah, definitely jump in and like learn all the AI stuff you can, because I feel like it's just gonna expand. It's just gonna grow. And dude, well, I really appreciate you coming on the show, Lewis, and sharing your knowledge. Tell us, man, is there anything you want to promote or anything you're working on right now that you're really passionate about that you want to talk about?
Um, man, really, honestly, I I have nothing out there that I mean, if anybody is interested in getting a website or app built for themselves, they can always reach out to me. And I guess it's always cool to know that the guy who built your app is the guy that does HBO, right? I do have my own company. It's called Lotus Marketing Solutions. So it's not gonna be like an under the like an on the couch type of guy job. It will be a professional job. And I already do a lot of websites for a lot of people, a lot of martial art companies and things like that. And so it'll be a good job. It'll be a nice job and something that you will have to pay way more money for a company and to do instead of if I did it. So they can always do that. And also keep an eye out on Judopedia. Judopedia is an app that I created for learning judo online, and we are doing great things with it. It's growing every day. I get new people on the app every day, so and it eventually is going to. So far it's still on beta, but it's going to get released pretty soon.
Dude, that's awesome. Well, let me know when it launches, and I'll add it here to the show notes. But if you're interested in connecting with Lewis, check it out. I'll put the links down below to contact him. And dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
You're the man.